Hi, my name is Diana Carter.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Susie.
You are originally from where?
Mr. Lovell, Oxfordshire, England.
Yes, and we love to hear about your stories about when you were young. We love all those stories about England. But today we're going to talk about your immigration to America and why you came to America and how old were you when you came?
The original idea of me coming to America was that I lived near an American Air Force base, and a lot of my people that I knew had married Americans and come to America. I did not want to do that in case I didn't like living in America. So my dad gave me the idea to come to America in the first place because he met a lot of American soldiers while he was in World War II. He would take American infantry on his tanks into the war zones. So, and he always wanted to go to Texas. And so he gave me the idea, and I just wanted to go. And then my brother Michael brought a newspaper home from Northern England, and it had an advertisement in there about nannies going to New York. And there was a company here that took English girls and then talked to them about going and what it would be like and the jobs that they could get, and then you had to fill in an application, and then they took the application and then they fixed you up with a family in New York. So that's how I ended up getting there. I was 19 years old. It was in 1960. I would be 20 in October. This was August.
So that was very brave of you. So
Yeah, I didn't know whether I'd do it or not, but I ended up wanting to go, and so I did it.
how long did the decision take you?
This summer, I had to get references from my headmistress, or my principal, as they call it over here, for a reference. She had to do a couple of other references, and send it to the American Embassy in London, and also to the company that I was going to join. And then my mother and I went to get a visa from the American Embassy, and also had an interview with the company that I was going to be affiliated with.
Interesting.
And so it was a few months, and then Mrs. Spetney sent me a letter telling me about her grandson, whom I would be looking after.
Well, that's cool. Neat. Well, did they take your picture? And I do want to talk more about that in just a little bit, but right now I want to know about your experience of doing this. So, did they take your picture? Is that how they, put that with your package and send it off?
Yeah.
And
And then I had to, like I said, I had to get references. In my school, my headmistress said that I was the least likely person that she would have thought would have done something like that.
Oh, really? Why would she say that?
Because I was always shy, and she just didn't think that I would have been a person that would have done it. She always thought that. She wrote to me when I was grown up telling me that.
But she gladly gave you a reference.
Yeah, but she gave me a reference anyway.
That's cool. Well, that's what teachers do. That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, so what did people think? What did your brothers and sisters think, your friends think when you told them you were going to America to do this?
Well, the consensus was I could have always found, somebody to marry and go. But like I said, I would have been stuck in America.
That's pretty smart of you, Mama.
And then, it was for a year. They told you in the beginning it was just a year's contract. So
that's not bad.
No.
Neat. Well, that's cool.
The Spetnagels paid for me to go over there, and then I had to pay them back for the fare to go over there. Which,
that's kind of rude.
I know. I thought, now I think about it, I thought, it shouldn't have been that way, but that's how it was. And then they gave me I ended up with money to come back. I saved money to come back home.
Made sure you had your money.
There for a year, yeah.
That's smart. Well, cool. So you got on the plane by yourself?
Scared to death. And it was going to be a 24-hour trip because you went from Heathrow to Shannon Island, from Shannon Island to Thule, Greenland, from Thule, Greenland to Canada, somewhere, Newfoundland or somewhere in Canada. And then from there to Boston, and then from Boston to New York. So it ended up to be a 24-hour trip.
Wow. Not like it is these days.
Well, because they had to keep stopping to get gas, because it...
Yeah, they weren't long hauls.
Yeah, and so...
Well, that's a lot.
I know,
what an experience for a 19-year-old.
And I'd been on day trips to London and to the coast, but I'd never been very far away from the village that I grew up in. No more than about, 20 miles or so. Except for, rare trips.
Yeah.
So, to me, it was scary and,
exciting, probably all at once.
And I didn't know half the time what I was lucky that I had some really nice people on the trip that helped me go through everything,
That's
They were
awesome.
a lot more helpful in those days than they are in these days.
Oh, I don't know. You find people everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so what possessions did you bring with you? And what did you leave at home that you wished you maybe hadn't?
Well, I left, shoes, heels and stuff like that, and shoes and stuff, because you could only bring like one, I think it was one suitcase, and something you put in the overhead bin, and then but you didn't, not having ever been to this America before, I didn't really know what to take and what to leave behind anyway.
Yeah. Well,
English shoes were different because they were a little more modern than Americans were in that day and age.
Oh, I believe it.
Because it was the beginning of the 60s when really short heels had come into fashion and mini skirts were just...
Yeah, if you think about
skirts were getting shorter.
Yes, and I think France is a huge fashion, fashion with a statement, place and all. very close to England. I'm sure all of that was
yes.
carried over quickly and easily.
So when I came here, really, I was more avant-garde than a lot of Americans.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, okay. So now tell us about Mrs. Specknagel and her family that you were going to. What was it like when you first? Did you have to travel to their house?
No,
or did they pick you up somewhere?
I got off the plane at not Kennedy Airport, because it wasn't Kennedy. It was LaGuardia. I got off the plane at LaGuardia, and she was there, and she was I guess 50s, in her 50s, because she was the little boy's grandmother. Mm-hmm. That I was going to be working for, and she picked me up in her. She had a station wagon. She picked me up in her station wagon, and I'd never seen a car that big because the English cars were smaller. And so then we traveled from LaGuardia through New York, and it was like the neon signs and all that. We went through Times Square, and all the neon signs were out, and I'd never seen anything like it in my life, and it was just, such a culture shock. Then we traveled to the house she lived in, Scarsdale, New York, which was just a bedroom community for New York, and stayed overnight there, and then drove up to their summer house in Lake Warromog, Connecticut, New Preston area, New Milford.
Tell me about these people.
Mrs. Specknagel's family she was a Southern Belle. She went to Bryn Mawr. She was, her dad was one of the first people to actually have a electrical factory. One of the first people that did that, and that's how they made their money. Her family also owned a coal mine in Kentucky. So she had the money. Mr. Specknagel worked down on Fifth Avenue in like an advertising company for Standard Brands. They made coffee and invented denture cream and a lot of other different things that they sold under the Standard Brand logo. They lived in Scarsdale, which, like I said, was a bedroom community. And most of a lot of their neighbors were like in advertising or, down in Fifth Avenue in great big houses with, servants' quarters, and it was just such a difference to how I grew up. I mean, it's just indescribable to somebody who'd grown up in a council house in England.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, they were a nice couple.
So what was the situation with the little boy you nannied?
Well, Stephen's mother...
Because he was the grandchild.
Yeah, he was the grandchild. His father did, it was... in those days, you had to do 18 months in the military. And he was doing his service in the military. And
what happened to his wife?
And so she was stationed with him somewhere in, I think, New Jersey or somewhere like that. And she was in a military hospital after she'd had Stephen, and for some reason she just died. They never actually said why she died, but she died. And it was just a couple of days after he was born. Her family were timber barons up in Bangor, Maine. That's where their money came from. A very extremely nice couple. And so that's how, and so Stephen's father was so upset about his wife, I presume, that they ended up looking after Stephen. He was about a year old. He'd had a nurse, an actual RN, that looked after him for the first year of his life. And then they just wanted a nanny. They didn't, because he didn't need a nurse anymore.
Yeah.
He'd had problems after his birth, I think, but they didn't actually tell me what it was.
So what was the little boy like?
He was a wonderful little boy. He was blonde, looked a lot like Howse, as a matter of fact.
Does he?
Yeah. He was blonde and a very good little boy, and I just, I had experience because I'd been babysitting and looking after my younger brothers and family nephews and family friends and stuff. All my, as long as I could remember, there were kids around, so I was used to kids. I think that's one reason why she chose me, is because I'd already had experience with children. And after we were just stayed overnight in their house in Scarsdale, and then we went up, like I said, to Lake Warramog, which was close to New Preston, Connecticut.
Their homes were beautiful, I bet.
Yes, it was gorgeous. It was on a lake, and they had a lot of neighbors. One of them was the Rockefellers.
Wow, early 1960s, right?
Yeah. So, but it was like a country club area where they were all moneyed people who spent the summer up in Lake Warramog. They went around the 4th of July and came home on Labor Day for the kids to go to school, But the kids had boats on the lake, and they had a country club, and it
was a good life, it sounds like.
Had dinner and people over for dinner, and they went to the club all the time and played golf. And
so what was your responsibility with
my responsibility was I had to look after Stephen. When I was up in Connecticut, I had to do the dishes, and I didn't do the cleaning. She had a cleaning lady come in, but I had to do the dishes and
tidy up
a lot of stuff. But I had to look after Stephen, and I also had to do his washing and my washing and clean my bathroom and change the shit, do everything you do. And then that was it, mostly, And I was also there. They had a 13-year-old son and a 19-year-old. He was mentally disabled. He had cerebral palsy.
Living in the house?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he, so I was there. Jan was perfectly able to kind of look after himself. I wasn't looking after him, but I did keep an eye on Ricky. The 13-year-old occasionally when they went somewhere.
Well, what did you do to entertain the children? What did you do to entertain the children? What kinds did you teach them new games?
They used to be fascinated because I was used to walking for miles and miles, and at home I wasn't used to getting in a car and driving anywhere, and so I would put Stephen in the stroller and walk him all the way around Lake Warramog. And
He loved it, huh?
yeah, and Mrs. Spetney, all her neighbors would say to her, "We saw your nanny, so and so and so and so. She walks a lot, doesn't she?" Yeah, because she's used to walking.
That's fun.
But I also got to know, they were nice people. I got to know a lot of their friends and stuff. And
That's cool.
you
Did
know,
you make
talked
any
to-
personal friends?
Yes, there was, a couple of, when we went in, we'd take Stephen to the park at the beach. They had a little beach at one end of the, like a little club, that you could go at one end of the lake. And there was other girls that were, au pairs and nannies. So, yeah.
You guys were living a good life, it sounds like.
No,
Having that
it wasn't
experience up by a lake.
It wasn't
and...
actually because I was homesick, like you would
Oh,
not believe.
yeah, there would be that.
And, and it was lonely too because I didn't see those girls very often.
Yeah.
And the only people I knew were the Spetnagels, and, I wasn't their family.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time on my own, and if I wasn't with the kids and stuff, I was.
Yeah, you
And
ate
it was
by
an
yourself,
entirely different lifestyle to the one that I'd grown up in.
of course. And you'd eat by yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to eat in the kitchen and breakfast in the kitchen, and yeah, I didn't eat dinner with them.
Interesting. I think if I had someone in my home, they would have to eat with me.
Nah, I mean, even when we moved back to New York, I ate in the breakfast. They had like a little breakfast nook that they never used.
Yeah.
And I'd be just through the door. It was in between the kitchen and the dining room, and they were just.
Yeah. Plus, you probably got your own downtime and
Yeah, well,
write your letters and.
there was nowhere much for me to go when I lived up in Connecticut. It was kind of difficult because, there wasn't anywhere for me to go. At least when I was in New York, I could go into. They had a basement that was, fixed up as like a small living room kind of thing with a black and white TV, and the washing machine was, it was finished, so you couldn't see the washing machine and stuff, and I went down, that's where I spent most of my evenings, and if I had time off. I worked, I had one day off a week and every other Sunday.
Wow.
So I had less time off than.
What time did your day start and end?
Well, when Stephen woke up,
Yeah.
like at 6 o'clock or something, and
And
then
when
when
he
he
went
went to
down,
bed,
yeah.
Once he was in bed,
Well, Mom, we're going to close this video out so we can easily update it, or upload it rather, but there's so much more to talk about.
Because I had friends that once I got to New York, I had English friends.
Well, we'll talk more about that,
Yeah.
and how you left America and then went back to England and even came back again to Nanny. So we'll talk about that. You're a very brave woman. I appreciate you and love all that you have done to be where I'm at, to help bring me to where I'm at today. Love you, Mama.
Well, yeah, because I've got, we used to go all over New York. And,
Yeah. All right, Mom.
okay.
We'll talk later.
Okay, bye.